Hey friends, thanks for stopping by the channel. And today I'm going to smoke you a beef hanger steak that you can't refuse. From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Grill Father Johnny M. And this is Texas North Barbecue and Grill.
We are live from my backyard where I am smoking these meat like a brisket. I'm making meats now. Someone asked me, do I smoke meat? That's gonna be delicious. Yeah, if I smoke meat, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Welcome back. Now the first thing that I wanted to do is show you where the hanger steak is located in the cow. And it's called a hanger steak because it literally hangs from the diaphragm of the cow. So it's located in this area right here where the plate is located of the cow. Now there's only one hanger steak in each cow, and it's often called a butcher steak because butchers often keep this cut for themselves. They set it off to the side and take it home and don't sell it to the public. And the reason they do that is because it's well marbled and it's very flavorful, and the flavor and texture is very similar to that of flank steak. Now here's our cut of meat for today. This came from White Feather Meats in Creston, Ohio, and it was cut by one of the bearded butchers. I'm sure you've seen some of their videos on YouTube. What I'm going to do is get this out of the packaging, and we'll get this myoglobin, this red liquid, pat dried off of here. We'll come back and start to get this prepped up. We're going to go ahead and get this fat trimmed up as best as possible. And basically, I'm going to treat this as a roast. And it's essentially two steaks that separated by a strip of sinew. And I'm not worried about that. Most people would cut that sinew out and make two basically strip steaks out of this. So I'm not going to treat it like that. I'm going to take this and treat it as a roast. We're going to smoke it, and then we'll put a nice sear on it. So let's go ahead and trim up this fat and get rid of all this excess fat. Now I'm not looking to make this a work of art when it comes to trimming. It's a big piece there. Here's a big tag right here I'll take off. Not worried about making it look pretty because no one sees the meat when it's not cooked. So I'm not worried about making this a masterpiece. I'll just go ahead and take off what I can here. Some of this will just nicely pull up for me. Make things a little bit easier for me to get it off. So I have this all trimmed up. You can see the little pile of fat here that I got taken off. And what's left to do now is to put a binder on it and then our rub. And my binder of choice is duck fat. This is rendered duck fat. You can use whatever binder that you like, whether it's mustard or olive oil or whatever, but I like to use duck fat. So I'm just going to take my baster here and squirt some on, get a nice coating on all the sides. Doesn't take much. And then we will go ahead with the next step of putting our rub on. And this is essentially steak, beef. And what I like to use is a low sodium rub. And today, when I'm doing beef, I'm just going to use a combination of no salt and accent, which is MSG, a little sprinkle of that. And then we'll put some 16 mesh coarse ground black pepper on. And I like to go low sodium. I really don't cook with salt other than when I am making like turkey or chicken where there's skin involved, and salt then will help to crisp up the skin along with a little bit of baking powder. Mix those together, and that really helps with getting a nice crispy skin, because that's my favorite part of the bird. So I put a nice generous coat of the no salt on. And now just a little sprinkle of the MSG. Don't worry about all the negative reports you've heard of MSG in the past. Science studies have found that it's not unhealthy like it used to be reported in the 70s and 80s. Finally, I'm going to give this nice coating of 16 mesh coarse ground black pepper. Got this from Lane's Barbecue in Georgia. Put a link in the description for you. Get all sides. Just set this in. Get this side. And then finally, the top here. And that's it in terms of preparation. Set this in too. Now I'm going to transfer this to a cooling rack and let it rest overnight. And I usually smoke my meats on a cooling rack. It allows for easy transport in and out of the house and in and out of the smoker. And also, while it's on the smoker, it allows for a water pan to be put underneath and for that smoke and air to circulate on under the bottom of the meat as well. So this goes in uncovered in the refrigerator overnight, and then tomorrow we will get to smoking this up. I took the hanger steak out of the refrigerator, and we are going to get outside here in just a moment to get things going in terms of the cook. But I wanted to share with you a couple of things that I usually like to talk about in my other videos. And the first is what I call the 4 T's for successful barbecuing: taste, tenderness, texture, and the fourth and most important T of all, technique. I say it's the most important because if you don't get the technique down correctly, then the taste, tenderness, texture, one or maybe even all 3 of those is going to be impacted because you didn't do something right along the way. So the T of technique is most important. You may be wondering about the T of temperature. That's important as well. Not only the temperature inside the smoking chamber, but what temperature we're aiming to get to in terms of internal temperature of the meat, and also the ambient temperature outside, the weather. So I consider the T of temperature to roll up under the T of technique. What about the T of time? I'm not worried about time. The only time that I am is when it is time to rest the meat, and then I will keep track of time then. I cannot rely on time as a good barometer of letting me know when meat is done. If I'm going to cook a lasagna in the oven, I'll worry about time for something like that. But when it comes to barbecuing, the meat is done when the meat is done. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is managing and monitoring the cook. And the way I do that is by using a cook log. And this is my Texas North Barbecue and Griddle cook log. It's a 3-ring binder. And what I do is for each cook, I have its own separate sheet. We'll go over today's cook log sheet in just a moment. And essentially, having a cook management and monitoring system helps me stay focused and on track throughout the cook. I record things at different times. I keep track of when I spritz, when I change wood, and things like that. And then after the cook, I put it in its home in the 3-ring binder. So the next time when I go to do a beef hanger steak 6 months or a year down the road, instead of trying to remember everything that I did on this particular day, I just go to its place in the 3-ring binder, pull it out, and my memory is instantly refreshed what I did, and I can be on my way. So let's get a bird's eye view now of today's game plan. I'll start with the pre-cooked categories. We're going to be using the Pit Boss smoker for the beef hanger steak today. As I mentioned, the meat came from White Feather Meats. It was 3 pounds in weight. It was frozen. You saw that we put on the duck fat binder and the no salt, accent, and black pepper combination for the rub. For the wood today, we're going to be using almond pellets and post oak mini splits. And we're also going to be having a water pan in the smoke chamber. And we will sear the beef hanger steak first before putting it into the smoker. For the in-cook stage or the M&M phase, we will record our start time and end time. And if we do any wrapping, we are going to be cooking at 225 degrees today and taking it to an internal temperature of 125 degrees. Then I have spaces here to record spritz times and wood replenish times. Afterwards, we will keep track of our rest period, what the weather conditions were like for the day, and any notes that I can use for the next time around. So let's go ahead and get outside. The smoker is up to temperature, so the last thing we need to do before we put the meat on is to get our smoker box fired up. And this is the smoker box here. This is a Diamond King smoker. It's a 6-inch by 12-inch size. It comes in a 6x6 as well. This is a game changer when it comes to pellet grills. This smoke box is going to give you stick burner, offset smoker type quality of smoke. And the way it works is you have this stainless steel smoker box. Inside I have an airflow cage with some fire starters. Then I have some lump charcoal in there. I'm going to fire this up. And we're going to let this lump charcoal ignite. Let it ash over just a little bit. Then we're going to come back and we're going to put our post oak mini split on. So we'll give this just a few minutes. Nice fire is going now. The lump charcoal is ashing over. So let's go ahead and put on our post oak mini split. And I get these at Woodchuck Firewood. Andy is the person that runs that company, and he can get you any kind of wood. I just like to use the post oak. You can see I have a nice mini split here. We'll go ahead and put this on. Let it catch. I'm just going to give it a little jump start with the torch here as well. And I promise you, when this goes into the smoker, you're going to see some beautiful post oak smoke generating. Again, this is a game changer for pellet grills. I highly recommend you spend the $50 to get yourself a smoker box. It does take up a little bit of room, but if you're only smoking one meat at a time, which is what I do, then it's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and let this catch, and then we'll get over to the smoker. I have the cast iron skillet nice and hot now, so we're going to put down a layer of canola oil. Spread it nicely evenly across the surface. And then we'll go ahead and put our hanger steak on. Get a nice sear on that. We will put, I use a bacon press to help make sure the entire surface of the meat is getting a nice sear. We'll close this up and let it do its thing for a couple of minutes, and then we'll check and flip it over. Been a couple of minutes. Let's check in on things. See how that sear is going on the bottom. Excellent. Really happy with that. We'll do the same thing on the opposite side now for a couple of minutes, and then we'll get the meat into the smoker. It's been a couple of minutes on this side. Take off my bacon press, give it a quick check. Looks good. So let's go ahead and move this back onto our cooling rack. And now I will transport it right over here to the smoker. I already have my water pan in, and we'll move it into the smoker. Now we're in the official manage and monitoring stage, and we will keep track of things. Put the lid on here, and we'll check back in a little bit. We are an hour into the cook, and we're at about 105 degrees internal temperature, so we have about 20 degrees to go yet before I take it off. But I just want to give this a little spritz of some apple cider vinegar, and then we will be checking in pretty shortly. I didn't expect this to be a very long cook, and it's turning out to be that way, so shouldn't be long. We'll check back one more time. Meat probes going off for 125. So we're all set to take this off. We will do this, wrap it in aluminum foil inside for about 10 minutes, and then we will get to slicing this up. I'll see you in there. So we let this rest for 10 minutes to allow the muscle fibers to relax and let the juices flow back into the center of the steak. So let's get this unwrapped. We'll get to cutting this up. It's got some nice juice, as you can see right there in the foil. Let's set this to the side. All right, now I'm going to cut from this end. And remember that most people just cut this in half and cook it on the grill as 2 pieces of steak, but we cooked it today kind of as a roast. And just go ahead. Remember, we cut on the double bias 45-degree angle, and then another 45-degree angle. Create more surface area, which helps with the tenderness of the meat. Now remember that the hanger steak has that piece of sinew in the middle. As we get closer to the middle, we will just have to cut around that. It's time to eat. But I wanted to get some nice big pieces of steak versus smaller pieces if we had it cut into 2 separate long pieces of steak. So here we are in the middle. You can see we have nice medium rare. One more slice here. I think this turned out really nice and juicy. I like the texture. And just do a little tug test. Pulls apart very nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and finish slicing this up. I'll ring the dinner bell and let the gang know it's time to eat, and then I'll come back with some closing comments. Now, friends, this was the first time that I ever smoked beef hanger steak, and I have to tell you that it ranks right up there with beef picanha and beef tri-tip, which are two of my favorite cuts of meat to smoke. The reason I say that is that they always turned out tasting amazing, and they're very quick smokes, usually 2 hours or less. Today's cook only took about an hour and 20 minutes total. Now, I don't like to do taste tests on camera if you've seen my other videos, because I can't offer you a bite to eat. So I like to mind my manners and not eat in front of you. I did do a taste test off to the side, and I was super pleased, super happy with the taste, the tenderness, the texture. You saw how juicy it was and how it just pulled right apart, and had sliced up very nicely. Now, you know that we smoked that beef hanger steak whole, and we didn't cut it into two separate steaks. I really encourage you just to take the whole piece and do it like I did today. Start with searing it and getting a nice crust on both sides, and then put it in the smoker and slow smoke it, and cut it up as whole. You can deal with that little fatty piece that runs through the middle. You can cut that out. Now, if you follow the technique that I showed you in today's video, I think you are going to be really happy with the taste, the tenderness, and the texture of the meat. So if you execute the technique like I showed you today, when it comes time for you to serve up your beef hanger steak to guests or family members, I think their reaction is that they're going to give you 2 claps and a Ric Flair.
Give me 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Woo!
Now, I'm not going to do a taste test on camera, but I am going to give this the Grill Father Johnny L stamp of approval. Hey friends, thanks for stopping by the channel today. Hope you found this video useful and helpful. Would you do me the favor of hitting the like and subscribe buttons, as well as sharing this video with a family member or friends? Until next time, this is Grill Father Johnny L. Take care, God bless, and smoke on.